Which is why I honestly think that for a case like this, I don't even get why the police are being involved. At this rate, if the witch doctor enjoyed it, she would most likely go and pray to the spirits and have this guy right back where she is. If she wasn't particularly okay with this, she can just make the guy's dick fall off. Like, these witch doctors are known to be some particularly powerful individuals whenever it comes to the
royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who likes his women the same exact way he likes his yogurt. He is also a man who may include jumping to conclusions to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B, and I am here to talk about fear. Yes, I know people would expect me to talk about some other shit, but the main theme of this episode is fear. And the weird part about it is people usually talk about the opposite of love being hate, which always isn't the case, or people can talk about the opposite of love being indifference, but in this particular episode, I feel like the opposite of love, just for this episode in particular, is fear. Because there's a bunch of shit that is preventing people from making certain moves or not making certain moves simply because of fear. And that is something that I intend on talking about on this particular episode. Of which, if you are listening so far, thank you so much for listening. I hope you listen all the way till the end. And should you like the episode, should you not like it, should you want to give feedback, or should you want to suggest a potential topic that I can or should discuss, then the social media links are usually in the description, rarely ever change, and my DMs are always open, and I would love you guys to DM me. And I also wouldn't mind a follow here and there if you're on those apps, whichever one of them it is, because it kind of feels nice to have a lot of followers as a podcast, just say. But all in all, you can still send me the DMs and I will be more than happy to read them and handle them accordingly. Now, I do need to get into the episode of today, of which I feel like it's a bit of a light, but also a bit of a heavy, but also a bit of a deep topic to kind of discuss. But like I said in the beginning, the topic is fear, and I want to kick things off by talking about it, or the lack thereof, because there is a particularly interesting case where most people would have a bunch of fear if they were in that position, but dude just went out all in, and it's like he had no fear, or whatever spirit was possessing him had no fear at all. And the reason I'm talking about spirits and possessing is because the story involves a man who supposedly, and I kid you the hell not, sexually abused a witch doctor in Kitui County. This shit is like, normally I'd be like, this shit is what, this is the definition of wild shit at its absolute core. Now, I'm gonna read the story real quick before I can get into my thoughts on the entire thing and to make whatever jokes I need to make, because I feel like the details here might actually be spicy enough that they might add to the jokes. So, the story says, and I quote, "Police in Kithioko, Mwingi County are searching for a young man named Brian, who is accused of raping a 36-year-old witch doctor at her shrine. Brian reportedly went to the witch doctor's shrine seeking help after his wife left him 3 months prior. During the ritual's performance by a naked witch doctor around 3 a.m., Brian allegedly became overwhelmed by the nature he was viewing at a close range. The witch doctor told the police, 'That young man seems to have impregnated me because that morning glory, quote unquote, was not a joke. He took 2 hours. End quote. Okay, now I don't know about y'all, but can you try and just picture this for a quick moment? Like, alright, like just try and picture this as just a normal, sensible human being. Mandem decided to go to a witch doctor because, I don't know, he wanted his wife to come back. Then somewhere along the line, as he was trying to get his wife back, the guy looks at a naked woman and is like, you know what, it's been a minute since I was between a woman's legs, and Mandem just goes all the way in. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that witch doctors are ugly and you should never try and make a move or anything. Okay, actually, yes, you probably shouldn't ever really try and make a move on them. And that's for particularly obvious reasons, because you think about it, like, just actually think about it. Imagine you trying to be with a witch doctor and she's like a toxic babe, or she's like the toxic ex. Like, imagine you trying to move on with another shorty. Your dick will never stand up. They will tell themselves, you know what, this dude will never, ever get himself inside another babe ever again. And the best case scenario is you'll be having premature ejaculation, so it'll just be a shit show anytime you want to bang a babe. Or on the other hand, your dick might never even go up. Or to make matters even more worse than that, like they could probably just make a doll and pluck its penis out, and then you just watch your penis just drop and then start wiggling around going towards her direction and shit. Like, imagine all the wild shit that witch doctors could do if whatever it is that they claim to do might actually be a real thing. Then now combine that with the fact that there's a dude that was just a little too horny that he decided, you know what, I am going all the way in even though she's in the middle of a ritual. Like, that shit is actually mad as hell. Like, I've been discussing wild shit this entire year, but honestly, I feel like this one is about to take the cake, or if not, just be somewhere there at the top. Because I'm trying to think about if this guy is busted, when this guy is busted. I don't know if it'll actually happen. Like, imagine being pulled by the cops, then you're being arraigned in court, and then you're asked if you're guilty. Like, if I was a dude, I'd be over there like, not guilty. If he's asked to explain himself, he'll be like, honestly, there's an explanation for all this, and you might not believe me, but I kid you not, there's an explanation for all this. When the guy is asked to explain himself, all he has to say is, Your Honor, the evil spirit was willing, but the body was weak. I couldn't do jack shit. Evil spirit got into me, and it felt like he wanted some, and he went ahead and he got some. I didn't know what to do there. I was trying to fight it, and it was just really, really overpowering my spirit. So it was just taking over, which is why, like, this guy ended up lasting for a straight 2 hours. Because, like, what other explanation could it be? Because I don't think dude went there trying to get superhuman strength, aka nguvu za kiume. Dude went in there probably just trying to get his lost love, because that's one of the many advertised services that witches and witch doctors usually have. But dude went in there and accidentally got nguvu za kiume in the process, and Mandem decided to leave a 2-hour trail of just strokes inside a witch doctor. And honestly, I know, like, rape isn't one of those things that you're supposed to joke about, but honestly, this is one of those cases where it's wild as shit. Also, the way the witch doctor is describing it, it's almost like it wasn't really a rape per se, because when the witch doctor is like, morning glory was not a joke and the guy took 2 hours, it almost seems as though she kind of got into it and she was like, you know what, he ain't so bad. Honestly, I don't get why the wife left him, because you know what, he ain't so bad. And at that point, she kind of just went along with it and just let Mandem go all the way through. But frankly, if I was to throw blame on this entire thing, I just throw blame on the spirits. She was conjuring up spirits. Maybe she misrepresented some other person's spirit, because she was probably trying to resurrect my wife's ancestor to go and tell my wife to come back to me, But she ended up conjuring the wrong spirit, and that spirit decided to take me over and go and lay some serious pipe. Maybe it was, like the name of her ex that, she probably was supposed to have ditched and forgotten. Or maybe she had promised that spirit a bunch of strokes, while they were busy just chilling, like during downtime a couple of weeks or months or years ago. And that spirit was like, you know what? I want to get my due. I'm not going to fight this. It's been a minute. I was owed. It's about time I go and lay some pipe. And then he decided to go ahead and do it. And in all honesty, I'd wonder how a judge would actually manage to try this entire case, because yes, witch doctors are human beings as well, but when you start involving the spirits in all of this, it does become a little bit of a tricky situation. Which is why I honestly think that for a case like this, I don't even get why the police are being involved. At this rate, if the witch doctor enjoyed it, she would most likely go and pray to the spirits and have this guy right back where she is, If she wasn't particularly okay with this, she can just make the guy's dick fall off. Like, these witch doctors are known to be some particularly powerful individuals whenever it comes to the dark arts. So, if the dark arts is trying to get retribution for the conjugal arts, is that really a problem? Because I feel that's how it would probably be handled. Although then again, considering that I don't want to incur any wrath from any potential witches that might be listening to this podcast, I will leave this story at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. And it actually stems from a particularly interesting question. It's the simple question of why aren't you in a relationship, or why aren't you trying to get yourself into a relationship? And it kind of harks back to a conversation I've had with a couple of different people, but more so a video clip that I saw that was pulled from a TV interview that had happened with a psychologist by the name of Anthony Njenga. Now, I have collaborated with Anthony Njenga, although not on the podcast, on TV actually, and he does tend to have some particularly interesting insights. Now, in this particular case, he was being asked if people are scared of commitment today, and he had some very interesting viewpoints on it, but one that I found to be particularly true, but still something worth talking about. So I am going to let the clip play, then I can get into my thoughts on the entire thing. So without further ado...
So do you think people today are shining away from commitment?
Well, I'd say yes and no.
Yeah.
Let me start with no. I believe maybe people are not scared of commitment, or they're not scared of committing. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just scared of committing to the wrong person with the wrong purpose. And I would say yes, which really depends on a personal level. But the people who are scared of commitment, on a yes, I am scared of commitment, it could be they're actually scared to commit themselves into someone or a relationship where they're not seeing the long-term, the vision, there's no that emotional presence, there's no physical presence, the wholesome bit of it. And I would say commitment is one of the most really crucial and a bit challenging thing, because if really you have decided to be with someone in a relationship, I tend to believe you really must be committed into really doing this relationship with this person.
Yeah.
So, well, I'd say people are not really scared of commitment per se, but they're just scared of committing to the wrong person with the wrong purpose.
Yeah.
With like hamwendi mahali, mko tu mnasonga tu.
Okay. Particularly interesting viewpoints there. And in my opinion, I feel like he's mostly right, especially on the viewpoint of people not wanting to commit to the wrong person. I wouldn't extend it to the wrong purpose bit, because I don't think most people think towards the whole line of like purpose, but essentially just committing to the wrong person in general. Because I think for most people, they believe that if you commit to the right person, you can commit to the right person, and then the whole purpose thing becomes kind of like not really a big issue to discuss, because you are with quote unquote the right person, or as some people would say, the right person for you. Although that said, I do believe that there are people that are just afraid of commitment in general, and I will get to that a little later. But for now, let me just try and kind of go into the whole not wanting to commit to the wrong person, because I feel like that's just where most people who aren't in a committed relationship or aren't getting into commitment and aren't even putting effort would probably kind of stem from. Now, when I kind of look at how a lot of people nowadays complain about the dating market, and then they say that it's very shit, they don't want to date, it's been so bad, blah, 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 you find that more often than not, they have probably gone through some shitty situation or some shitty situations which make them not want to go out and date again. And, maybe they might go and they might try it out, and they encounter a couple of shit individuals that are very, very active in the dating market. And then from that, they're like, you know what? I do not want to attempt to go out into the dating market again, or at least for the time being. And granted, I can kind of get why, because there's a point in time where you just go through a couple of shit experiences, and if you don't take a break from it, it's like you'll probably continue just having shit experience after shit experience after shit experience. And as someone goes through that, the next thing that they wouldn't want to do is get to a point where their standards drop so low that they're willing to settle for less, as some women would probably call it, and then they end up with a shitty individual for a partner who doesn't treat them right, blah, blah, blah. And as such, you find that more and more people aren't very willing to get into the dating market. just mostly because either they've been previous participants or they had a relationship that was fairly solid which ended, and then now they've been told left and right, or they've read stories of, they've heard stories of how shitty the dating experience is for a lot of people, and they're like, you know what, the market is absolutely shit. Why would I try my luck out there? There's just so many shit people out there. And the reality of it is, it's not like it's always going to be the case. Yes, the dating market can be particularly shitty, but it's also had, some good results for a lot of people. Whether you're talking about online dating, whether you're talking about just, meeting people within close circles of friends, whether you're talking about meeting people at the club, like, there's a lot of people who have good dating experiences as far as being in the dating market over the past maybe 5 to even a decade is concerned. So saying that the dating market is all shit is probably a bit of a stretch and a reflection of a lot of people who just haven't had great experiences overall. And whenever I listen to people that talk about the crappy experiences that they've had in the dating market, it shows how whenever more and more people decide that they don't want to commit because they wouldn't want to commit to the wrong person, a lot of it comes from a sense of risk avoidance, which is why they don't go out there and date, because now they wouldn't want to date a shit individual. So you go out there, you meet someone, and you want to find out how good or how bad of a person they are. And I feel like for most guys are trying to see how good of a babe the woman they met is, but on the flip side, it's like the women are trying to see how potentially bad the guy is. Just mostly because whenever I listen to women talking about like, oh, I met this guy and I'm going to do this, this and this, and then they talk about green flags and they talk about red flags, it's almost like whenever women are going out to date, it's like they're actively looking for red flags and they're not even starting by looking for green flags. It's like your green flags are supposed to be there by default. It's the red flags that I'm looking for. And with guys, it's like, okay, this maybe is a good one. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not dealing with someone who's particularly messed up, because I do seem to be quite interested in this one. So the more green flags I can spot versus red, the better it is. But all in all, like, it does seem particularly interesting how more and more people nowadays just talk about how crappy the dating market is. And nowadays it's like people are talking about not going out to date, focus on your money and shit. And it's like that is the best methodology that people have come up with, because it just emphasizes a sense of risk avoidance, because you don't want to run the risk of meeting someone that might be crappy to you, or someone that might mess up the rest of your life because of, one mistake or the other. And as such, it's like, focus on money. Money will make you happy. You don't have to be in the dating market. You don't have to go out there and try dating. And yet, statistically, most people actually report being happier when they're in a good relationship as opposed to having more money. Granted, it's not like not having money and you're in a good relationship is going to be a great feeling, but you can have a little less money and still have a great life, or just, a very happy life, because of the value of the quality relationships that you have, whether you're talking romantic, whether you're talking platonic, whether you're talking with your siblings, like generally just relationships are a key to happiness. And this is as per one of the longest studies that has been carried out year on year. So in my opinion, I feel like just the fact that most people have chosen the more risk avoidance strategy, where they don't have to put in as much effort, or they will take someone through the hoops of, I guess, bureaucratic dating, if I can call it that, is kind of where most people are. Because when you look at back in the day, like, people would meet up, they are interested in each other, they go on a couple of dates. If they are interested in each other still, then they turn it into a relationship, then some level of courtship or settling down, then they get married. Or they can even skip the courtship and like getting engaged, and they just go straight to getting married. But nowadays, you will listen to people, and I met this person, we're going to have a talking stage for like 2 weeks, then we're going to go on like a couple of dates, then we're going to start being exclusive with each other all through this entire time, and then at some point I expect the guy to pop the question, then we can start being in a relationship, then we'll do that for a couple of years, then we are going to decide to settle down and choose to be together long term, and then the guy is supposed to propose, and then now at that point you guys can work on getting married. Like, have you seen how long of a process that is? That's like 3, 4, 5 years minimum. God damn. And I'm not saying the timeline is the biggest issue, but for some people, they might not have 3, 4, 5 years. Just saying. But the whole thought process of not wanting to be with a bad partner has made people like stretch out or sometimes even avoid the experience of being with a good partner towards the whole idea of being married to them for so long that sometimes it kind of eats at the amount of time that you guys could probably even say that you were together. And I know this is going to sound like an unpopular opinion up until I actually cook and give it like real beans around this entire thing. But most people nowadays are willing to risk it in the short term as opposed to the long term. Like, no one wants to risk long term, but everyone wants to risk short term. In that, there's a lot of people that are very willing to sleep with someone in the first night even, or in the first 2 weeks. But you tell them to go and date someone for like a year so that they can see if they're like, long-term partner ready. And they will say no. They will now bring in the whole thing of, I have to get to know the person. I have to do this, this, and this. I'd have to be exclusive with them, blah, blah, blah. And essentially, you look at it like we are so afraid of commitment that we're willing to prioritize the short term versus the long term. And whenever we're looking at the long term, that's when we want to put so much, risk avoidance on the entire thing as opposed to the short term. And you kind of have to ask yourself why. Because I feel like the overall goal for most people, regardless of age, is usually the long-term benefit as opposed to the short term. Not unless if you're just trying to hoe around and shit. Which kind of leads me to the next batch of individuals that doesn't like commitment, which is just the ones that don't like it in general. And you find that this sort of ideology gets perpetrated and pushed, especially online, to both genders in such a blatant yet not so real way, and they kind of make it seem as though, why would I bother with a husband and kids when I can travel the world on my own and enjoy myself, and the kind of money that I make now is so much better. Otherwise, if I'd have been taking care of a bunch of kids, I'd have been so far back professionally. Or you hear guys on the other side busy saying, marriage is a scam. Women are always going to be a problem, blah, blah, blah. The most free man is a single man that can bag any baby he wants. You just make sure you bag your money. Then when you're at like 40, you can see if you can get like a young babe and just make her like your girlfriend and some shit. Or, why bother getting married? You can just go, you get a babe pregnant and you can stay with her. If things get salty, you can just leave and move on with someone else. And you're like, goodness fucking my, like, what kind of dysfunction are y'all trying to create out here? And yes, I get it. The whole playboy lifestyle and the whole rich auntie look might look good for a lot of people, especially when you're young. But honestly, I feel like true fulfillment and true happiness is usually found in community, when you are with people that genuinely love you and want to be with you. Not because you have money, not because you're a bunch of ass, not because you buy nice fancy gifts and you look like, the great person that's driving a big car and everything, but because they genuinely want to be with you. It's kind of like the whole in sickness and in health, and in wealth and in poverty, like even beyond death, like they will really, really genuinely love you. Like, that kind of love is the kind of love that I believe that most people, if not just about everyone, would love to have. And honestly, if we could just try and accept that there's going to be a little bit of risk, and we should at least accept some of it just by default, maybe, just maybe, we can go back out there and date and possibly have much better relationships. Which kind of brings me to the conclusion of all of this, which is that everyone wants love. Deep down, in some way or the other, we all want love. we may say that we're not about it. We may talk about how we're not really feeling it, or we're tired of love, or we don't think we'll ever get love. But deep down, I believe that we all want love, regardless of whether it's romantic or of the other kind, even though I am mainly talking about romantic. But we all would want love. Problem is, we're afraid to risk it because we don't want to suffer. We don't want to be on the other side as the victim. We don't want to be on the other side as the losing party. And honestly, if it came wrapped in a bow, we'd all take it with both hands and feet included. But because it doesn't come that way, we don't want to take it. But what if we decided to take on just some of that risk? Not all of it, but some of that risk. And actually, just went out there and actually tried to date with an acceptance that there is going to be some risk and there is going to be some disappointment, but you can't hit the goal without having a little bit of it. Because when you kind of think about it, what's a little bit of suffering, at least to some degree, if you can have the time of your life, or if you can have the future that you'd always want with the kind of person that you'd always want to have it with. Or maybe I'm just chatting a bunch of shit and I'm just too hung up on love and shit, and maybe I'm just a lovesick fool. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.